Hello and welcome to First Chapter Fridays. My name is Miss Pam and I normally work at the North Valleys branch. Today I will be reading you the first chapter of Kate DiCammillo's Flora and Ulysses. And this book is illustrated by Kate DiCammillo and it is published by Candlewick Press. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book first. It says, she is a natural born cynic. He is an unassuming squirrel. Together, Flora and Ulysses will conquer villains, defend the defenseless, and protect the weak, or something. And that's the inside of the flyer jacket here. So the first chapter starts. Chapter 1, A Natural Born Cynic. Flora Belle Buckman was in her room at her desk. She was very busy. She was doing two things at once. She was ignoring her mother, and she was reading a comic book entitled The Illuminated Adventures of the Amazing Incandesto. Flora, shouted her mother. What are you doing up there? I'm reading, said Flora. Remember the contract, her mother shouted. Do not forget the contract. At the beginning of the summer, in a moment of weakness, Flora had made the mistake of signing a contract that said she would work to turn her face away from idiotic hijinks of a comics and toward the bright, light, true literature. Those were the exact words of the contract. They were her mother's words. Flora's mother was a writer. She was divorced and she wrote romance novels. Talk about idiotic hijinks. Flora hated romance novels. In fact, she hated romance. I hate romance, Flora shouted to herself. She liked the way the words sounded. She imagined them floating away from her in a comic strip bubble. It was a comforting thing to have words hanging over your head, especially negative words about romance. I'm going to show you the picture. Here's a picture of the I hate romance above Flora's head. Flora's mother had often accused Flora of being a natural born cynic. Flora suspected that this was true. She was a natural born cynic who lived in defiance of contracts. Yep, thought Flora, that's me. She bent her head and went back to her reading about the amazing incandesto. She was interrupted a few minutes later by a very loud noise. It sounded like a jet plane had landed in the Tickman's backyard. Tickham's backyard. What the heck? Said Flora. She got up from her desk and she looked out the window and saw Mrs. Hickam running around the backyard with a shiny, oversized vacuum cleaner. It looked like she was vacuuming the yard. It can't be, thought Flora. Who vacuums their yard? Actually, it didn't look like Mrs. Hickam knew what she was doing. It was more like the vacuum cleaner was in charge. And the vacuum cleaner seemed to be out of its mind, or its engine, or something. A few bolts shy of a full load, said Flora out loud. Then she saw that Mrs. Hickman and the vacuum cleaner were headed directly for a squirrel. Hey, now, said Flora, and she banged on the window. "Watch out!" she shouted. "You're going to vacuum up that squirrel," she said. And then she had a strange moment seeing them hanging over her head. The words, "You're going to vacuum up that squirrel." There is just no predicting what kind of sentence you might say, thought Flora. For instance, who would ever think they were going to shout, "You're going to vacuum up that squirrel"? It didn't make any difference, though, what word she said. Flora was too far away. The vacuum cleaner was too loud. And also, clearly, it was bent on destruction. "This malfeasance must stop," said Flora in a deep, super heroic voice. "This malfeasance must stop," was the unassuming janitor Alfred T. Slippers always said, is what the unassuming janitor Alfred T. Slipper always said before he was transformed into the amazing incandesto and became a towering, crime-fighting pillar of light. Unfortunately, Alfred T. Slipper wasn't present. Where was the incandesto when you needed him? Not that Flora really believed in superheroes, but still, she stood at the window and watched as the squirrel was vacuumed up. Poof! Poof! "Holy bam-gumba!" shouted Flora. There's a picture. And that is the end of chapter 1. If you would like to continue the story of Flora and Ulysses, the Illuminated Adventure, you can find it at the library when we reopen the branches, or you can find it on our Teen Book Cloud, which is available through the Washoe County Library website. Have a great summer, everybody.